Hi guys, long time no see. I haven't put a video out for a couple of weeks. I know. But the reason is there's been no reason to put out a video. There hasn't been anything going on. There are a few things that need to happen, and I'll just get up to the yard now and show you what those reasons are and fill you in on what's happening on this episode of Steve Stuff. So it's only a couple of weeks back at work, but it's been very busy. That's one of the reasons I haven't been down here a lot since I got back from up on holidays. I've also taken on a new role, a new responsibility at work. That's taking a bit of time. If you like country music, I'm now the breakfast announcer on iHeart Country Australia, as well as my other work on Sydney's Gold 101.7. So if you like country, tune in between 7 and 9 Eastern time in Australia. I don't know what time that is where you live. And, join me for a couple of hours. Anyway, so that's taking up a little bit of time, but there's been other things going on. The other day, I came down to move the Merlin, and God, I love the smell of this bus. It's got that old London bus smell about it. It's the stuff on the side of the walls. Even though it doesn't smell like the original, it's got a nice smell. Anyway, so for the first time ever, this bus would not start. It's always started, even after 18 years. Sitting in that paddock, all we did was chuck fuel in it, connect the battery up, and it kicked straight over. But the other day, it just would not start. So I couldn't get it out. I was going to take the Decker for a drive. It actually started first go. There's my temporary starter button there until I can get one into the dash. It started, it ran like it normally does. First go, never an issue. I never expected anything else. It idled, and the time it took me to walk up to the Decker and get into the driver's cab of that and then go to start it, this one I heard it go, kind of revved up, and then it died. I've spoken to some people, and then it just wouldn't start. Crank, to the point it nearly ran the batteries down. And then I've also got an issue with the battery I'll show you in a moment. It did eventually start, and it did idle and rev and stuff, but I wouldn't trust it, I don't think. I've spoken to a few people, and we're all on the same page. We think it is, so that canister there, that's the fuel filter. You might remember I treated the fuel tank with anti-algae stuff, put new fuel in it, but it had very dirty fuel in it. All of the driving we've been doing since the new radiator went in, teaching Dylan how to drive it, getting it to Busfest, I reckon we've just got a really filthy filter, because the way that it wouldn't start sounded like it wasn't getting fuel. The other thing was the post on that battery has had an acid leak while I've been away, and it's eaten away at the lead, and now you can't get a good purchase in there. There's not enough material for the cable to clamp on. I've ordered a new battery. That one's okay. I've ordered a new fuel filter. They're hard to get, but I did manage to get one. It's on order, and I think I might wait till Scott gets back to Sydney before I put that in, because apparently it's a bit of a job. We know the Decker was hard to start because I showed you that in the last video. I want to flatten my batteries. Doesn't want to hold me fuel. It eventually started, and then I came back the next weekend. It should have been fine, and it was hard to start again. So we're beginning to think It could be a possible fuel issue with this one as well. Scott did replace the fuel filters in this bus, but it's driven a long way since then. It came all the way down from Lightning Ridge, and then it sat at Maitland for 3 years, and then it drove another 400 k's down to Sydney, and with all the driving I've been doing into Bus Fest and things, so that may be another issue with that. I'll replace those filters. I think I've got a pair of those somewhere in a box that I bought for $11.28 and never put on. And then of course there's the radiator, which still isn't back. I don't have an ETA on it. They've just told me that they've been busy getting back into it after Christmas, and it shouldn't be too much longer. So that'll obviously be the next big job I do, getting that radiator back in and then working out how to connect it, whether I run a switch to the dash to turn the electric fan on, or have it running like as a temperature sensor. The other job I want to do is put a temperature gauge in the Atlantean. The Merlin has one. Obviously it came in very handy. This doesn't. There's an ammeter gauge there, and I'm thinking if I take the ammeter gauge out and just pop that temperature gauge right into that hole, I mean, I could drill another hole and put it there, but I don't really want to do that. Just replace it. I don't use that ammeter gauge. Sydney Bus Museum have invited me to bring this bus to an event that will involve running passengers around all night, and it'd be nice to have a temperature gauge. As far as I can tell, that is a sensor for a temp gauge. It's 2 wires on it running into the loom, and I don't know where they go. So I'm thinking maybe I can run 2 new wires from here, make these 2 obsolete, close them off, run 2 new wires, because one's a ground and one's the sensor. I think that's right, isn't it? Run 2 new ones up to the front and put a gauge in. So that's another job I'd like to tackle at some point to get this bus ready. If I do take it in and let it loose on the public with the museum event, I think it's in July, it will have to go over the pits and get a passenger ready check. The museum would do that for me. So I'd like everything to be hunky-dory before they go failing it on anything. I know I've got, well, I'm certain I didn't give them to the people that bought 1128. I'm sure I've got a couple of fuel filters in there somewhere, so let's have a look. That's an oil filter. Oh yeah, I think I can see them. Yep, all right. These are for the Atlantean fuel filter 1. Some fuel lines there too, spares. Fuel filter 2, so I knew I had those. They will come in handy and save me some money. So this is a C1191A diesel filter. It's in a Fram box and it's in great condition, but that's a Ryco R2132P. That could be the Ryco version of this. I'm hoping that's the case. Remembering that this is the original 680 engine. The other bus had a 600 in it, so I might have ordered the fuel filters for that bus and they could be different to this. I'll have to ask the Brains Trust, and when I get home I'll do some cross-referencing to see if these are actually compatible and interchangeable. So obviously that job's not happening right now. See, it does it again. It starts and then it stops. It's never done that before. We might have the same fuel issue. Actually, you know what? I'll go and prime the pump. It's gone again. Dirty filters. Now they're starting to hold an idle now. I'll change them. I'll just make sure I've got the right ones, because they're probably interchangeable, the 2 that I had. Well, I hope they are. That's idling now. Gotta love old diesels though, they're pretty simple. I'll just let it run for a little bit just to put some charge back into the batteries that we probably just took out. Oh, that's an annoying noise. Right, now you can hear it idling. Idling fine. Air in the tanks now, the rear door just opened properly. So yeah. All good. Put this one back to bed until I can get all the bits and pieces that I need. Remember those 3 little screws that came out the back of one of those light bases, and then I stupidly picked up on a drop sheet, came out here and shook the drop sheet and lost all the little screws? There were 3 of them, and I had Buckley's chance of finding them. Well, what do you know? Don't you love this little single seat? We couldn't find another frame to match the rest of the bus, but we did find this that's got a very similar frame shape to it. So we put it in there like it might have been put in the factory for an old lady with her shopping trolley, or a mum in a pram. Anyway, so that's the update. That's what's happening. Filters, radiator mainly, and I just don't know when that radiator is going to be ready. And to be honest, I don't really mind, because I'm still recovering from Christmas, trying to save up. That's going to be in the thousands, probably about 3 to recall that. So the longer it takes, the more it gives me time to save up. When Scott's down, we'll tackle the fuel filter in this one. New battery should be here soon for this one as well. So all the parts are getting collected, and then it'll just be go time when everything's here. With the Atlantean, they want me to run it in that big event in a few months' time. It has to be perfect to be able to run all night, carrying passengers, being insured. So, you know, I'll get it as good as I can. Try and work out why it's hard to start. I've got a fuel delivery problem there somewhere. I reckon it's just the filters. Fingers crossed that all it is. So thank you very much for hanging around. There hasn't been a lot going on, but this little video just gives you an update as to what has been happening. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good new year, and I'll see you soon on Steve Stuff. I love the smell of this bus. That's Rexine, by the way, the stuff on the wall I was talking about before. The original Rexine in London buses has a unique smell. This is very, very similar, and it reminds me of the Eggins bus from back when I was a kid. Maybe that's why I loved it so much, because it had that smell.